Good day to all. Welcome to Extreme Recap. The little kid's garments were gradually eliminated. Her face shows a look of interest. The atmosphere and timing are just right. A man from China and a little kid from France start a secret romantic tale in a little, dim room. On a ferry, they first meet. Jane, the young girl, is dressed in a plain white dress. The city's richest man was drawn to the young woman as she rests her long, lean legs on the railing. Because of her delicate features and lack of maturity for her age, the young woman becomes lonely as she looks out at the scenery. Tony made a cautious approach to the girl. His casual approach to her revealed his current nervousness. Jane just looked at him. She wasn't going to give any consideration to this odd man. Additionally, Tony said his address inadvertently, Tio. Jane was aware that the Rit could only live there. She immediately developed a new attitude. Jane was invited to join Tony in his car. Naturally, Jane did not decline. In the small space, the two of them were so anxious that it appeared as though they were having a facial. Neither of them knew how to talk. Jane looked through the window. However, he did not care to examine the seamer. Tony was bold enough to slowly move his hand toward Jane's little finger. Tony mustered the courage to take Jane's entire hand because she did not resist. One bead was missing from Jane's heart. Her eyes were bewildered, and her red lips were marginally open. When the car came to a stop in front of Jane's school, Jane awoke from her dream and fled, so did they both, immersed in the gradually hot air. The following day Jane once more observed Tony's car parked in front of her school. She slowly walked up to the car's window as she passed by and gave it a long kiss. However, Tony was currently seated inside the vehicle. Tony took Jane into a small downtown room after the kiss made his throat tingle for a while. He had been having a good time here with his other lovers. Jane came with him to the purposes of, I believe we ought to comprehend. However, after learning that Jane had never done anything like this before, Tony couldn't bear to make this young girl dirty. He planned to send the young lady back. Jane, on the other hand, was absolutely certain that, like the other women, I wanted Tony to treasure. As a result, Tony is unable to resist his inner desire. He cautiously takes off Jane's garments. His girlfriend was hit in the face by the man. He then generally pushed her down on the bed and quickly eliminates her jeans. Because he detested the fact that his girlfriend was with him for money, he brutally gave in to his desire. If he were to be born, he had asked Jane if she would be with him. However, Jane stated that she liked him as he was. Now with cash. Jane's words were both horrible and straightforwardly hurt a man's confidence. Indeed, even Jane herself didn't grasp her own sentiments, as a matter of fact. She was so conscious. After being Bodoni, on the other hand, she enjoys the vanity of eating at high-end restaurants once more. She emphasized to Tony on numerous occasions that her parents disliked Chinese people. Tony, who is young and arrogant, does not give in to defeat. He stated that in China, no man would marry an innocent woman. With a grin on her face, Jane stated that it would be a good idea. They respect each other. Additionally, as people repeatedly challenged one another, they were gradually battered and bruised. Jane had no problem getting into and out of Tony's high-end car from that point on. In front of the entire school, she became Tony's lover. A child concealed Jane's arm at school. She heard the kids call her fealty behind her back instead of receiving an apology. However, Jane couldn't have cared less about that. Instead, she is interacting with Tony on a more and more frequent basis. In the dimly lit room, the couple enjoyed their love. They would lay naked on their backs when they were tired and let the samurai from the blinds fall evenly on their youthful bodies. It's a different world outside of the noise of people entering and exiting the building. Jane rarely conveyed the tone. Despite the fact that they were engaging in the most private activities of their lives, the two of them appeared to be closest to Jane's mother. Bound out about her rest as nights. Her mom indignantly sent a message asking her where she was. Jane gave a careful appearance. Her eccentric mother gave her big brother all of her love because her home environment was so bad. Her older brother used to attend morning school. Furthermore, her subsequent sibling. However, her mother was unaware. So Tony's breasts were like a ray of sunshine for Jane. When Jane heard that Tony's family was wealthy, she gave Tony to her mother as a glimmer of hope in the dark of her life. Jane could now date him without her skepticism. In addition, Tony warmly invited Jane's family to a top-notch restaurant for dinner. During supper, Tony talked expressively about his privately run companies. He was eager to become more involved with the family, but Jane's mother and brother showed no interest. At the large table, everyone else was eating with their heads. Tony was the sole individual meditating on himself. The atmosphere is brought to a point where it freezes. Even though Jane's family is poor, they still exude the same arrogance as white people. After the teething period was over, they didn't give Tony much thought. Jane's older sibling kept Tony. They were close to getting physical. Jane did not prevent this. As if she were watching a good show, she added it. As if it were only possible to wrap her glass heart in that way. Jane additionally hit the dance floor with her sibling on the dance floor. Their bodies were then sealed together without leaving a single cat behind. Tony was so enraged as he watched. Eyes became red. The little kid coquettishly moved her legs on the bed. Her provocative behavior was stubborn in a way. We carried this out. How much is required? 500 piastres are needed by my mom. Tony got up, took out his wallet and pummeled the 500 on the floor out of resentment. Despite the fact that their relationship was orthodox from the beginning, he anticipates the girl to have genuine feelings for him. This is laughable. He was unaware that Jane had actually given her mother the money. The mother not only accepted Jane's body as a trade, but she also took it upon herself to instruct the teacher to refrain from leaving Jane alone at night in the future. Jane's sugar daddy was known to everyone in the school. Jane didn't care that some students or parents called her a slut. When she graduated, she planned to return to France. Tony started to feel worried when he heard that Jane was leaving. He desired to maintain Jane. He wants to tie the knot the Chinese way with her. However, Tony was only using his father's strength. He was required to bow down in front of Paris's authority. However, he gave Jane Darren what his mother had given him. He made a trickle home for this reason. Tony also declares his love for a French woman in front of his father right now. However, the negotiation his father had arranged for a wealthy woman to marry him, which was not surprising given his failure. Tony went in search of Jane to express his love for her. He would have rather not lost the lady he really cherished. The chain's response is well liked for its lack of dignity. Tony hints that the age difference or gap in her family's past could be the cause of her family's bankruptcy. This girl doesn't want to consider whether or not she loves this man. She doesn't want to confront the fated separation or the cold, thin grocery that hunched over her shoulders. Tony raped his jacket over her shoulders after taking it off. Both of them peer out over the immense farmland together to the waves. In the desperation silence, they stopped talking. They were both aware that their relationship would end eventually. They can only love one another while they are still here. Tony repeatedly requested that Jane inform him that she is with Tony for the money. The little kid expressed this again and again. Both of them were eventually overcome with emotion. Tony finally donned his wedding gown and wed the bride he had never previously seen. Jane remained external the group and watched him unobtrusively. She had no expression on her face. In any case, she felt miserable inside the second their eyes met was worth 1,000 words. Some relationships are addictive but must be ended. There is also a type of love that lasts longer and is more profound, because they won't always be together. Jane came to the room where they used to have intercourse once and for all. There was nobody here anymore, Jane. Potted plants need water to dry out. A final time. She stayed in bed by herself on Saturday night before returning, and some of the day arrived for her to travel back to France. Her mother informed her that Tony had paid off all of her family's debts. Additionally, Tony had purchased tickets for Jane's family to France until the end. Steele, this man. On the day Jane returned to France, he did everything in his power to help her. As she worked, Jane leaned on the rail and looked down the embankment. Tony was her first meet. Until the boat slowly left, she gave off the impression of being anxious and anticipating Tony's appearance. She finally saw the familiar vehicle Tony drove around the corner. That was her most pressing worry. She was at her hottest. At that precise moment, Miss Jane came to the realization that she loved this Chinese man deeply. But it took a while. Tony kept seeing all of her arrogance from her. She would not concede that she adored him however much he did. However, even if she acknowledges this law, What else is there to do? The distinction and status is the justification for why the sweethearts can't be together until the end of their lives. Beyond the Phil Jane got married, had kids, and split up. Tony is now a father and husband. Becoming old and unremarkableness. However, they still adore one another. They even dialed the telephone years after the fact across Europe and Asia. They both knew that the person on the other side of the life was each other, despite the fact that the greeting had not yet been said. The silence was superior to the spoken word. The lovers who were unable to fall in love met. Behind the most sincere affection. Turn on notifications, please subscribe for more videos like this, and like the channel to support it. Thank you very much for watching.